On some mornings the boy would notice a quiet stillness in the kitchen, and he could tell by the difficulty she had in sitting down that it had been her turn with the belt the night before. Chapter 10. The word pervert twitched in his mind. Being apprehensive of the man, and having no idea of the stranger's motives for approaching a young boy who was all alone in a quiet field, Woody was of the intention to leave his bag and fishing rod where they were and make a run for it. Having given Evan the quick once-over, Woody thought that the man could easily catch him up, or maybe even grab a hold of him when he tried to stand up. My two friends will be here any time soon, he warned the man, and then added a lie, stating that they're already 5 minutes late. He then began to wonder if the man may be one of those people who boss young boys off their land, and so blurted out, I'm not doing anything wrong. I never said you were. I know you didn't, but I'm just telling you that I'm not doing anything wrong. Woody wished he was stood up, then went on to protest his innocence further. I'm just eating my dinner, sandwiches and stuff. And biscuits, Evan added. Woody's hand brushed the corners of his mouth, trying to remove any telltale crumbs. Chocolate digestives, if I'm not mistaken, added Evan, as he continued to press Woody. And cherryade to wash it all down with. The stranger was beginning to make young Woody feel uncomfortable. How did you know that? He asked. About the biscuits and the pop, thinking that the man must have been spying on him. Evan was surprised at how much detail he could recall of his young self's preferences. I know everything about you, replied Evan, kneeling down near the youngster to be on an equal level with him in an attempt to put the boy at ease. His ploy only served to put the boy even more on edge, and he shuffled back a little into the safety of the tree. Everything? Inquired Woody, wondering how a total stranger could know anything about him. Never mind everything. Definitely spying on me, he confirmed with himself. The word pervert paid the distrustful part of his mind a visit. Yes, everything. I even know your middle name. This was the first piece of ammunition Evan had decided to fire at his young self. So what? Responded the youngster. It's not a secret. No, I mean your real middle name, not the one that you tell everybody, but Evan leaned towards the boy and spoke the name quietly. Woody's posture slouched, the poker face crumbled, and gave one to way of awkwardness. The thought of losing his credibility because the other kids had found out that he had a girl's middle name was an unthinkable proposition. It could lead to some of the other boys thinking that perhaps he was a bit of a sissy, despite his proven ability to take a good hiding from older lads. It was all well and good his mother telling him that it was a boy's name as well as a girl's name, unisex as she referred to it, but as far as Woody was concerned, her name should be either one or the other. Don't worry, I'll never tell anyone, I promise. Woody's confident demeanour returned, along with speculation as to who this man could be that knew personal things about him. Watching me, spying on me, would only allow him to gain a certain type of information about me. This man, though, knows a secret about me. He must know Mum or some other relative who knows that embarrassing name of mine. At least he felt a little safer in the stranger's company, feeling as though somebody who was known by his mother was less likely to be inclined to harm him. You look a bit like the photographs of my dad. Are you my uncle? No, I'm not your uncle, denied Evan, while wondering why his mother had bothered to keep photographs of such a violent man. Another way of trying to deny that the abuse ever took place, I suppose. Not that he ever blamed his mother for not preventing the physical abuse which had been inflicted upon him. No, sometimes he felt that he was enduring more than his own share to protect her from her willingness to be a victim of her husband's brutality. On some mornings the boy would notice a quiet stillness in the kitchen, and he could tell by the difficulty she had in sitting down that it had been her turn with the belt the night before. Those nights were always followed by weeks of absenteeism by his father, a form of counterfeit shame, as though trying to do the honourable thing in order to make amends for his dishonourable behaviour. A week or so later, the guaranteed sorrowful return, with the predictably trashy gift, came skulking back for forgiveness and money. One dreadful morning, it was only his father who come downstairs, and had spent 5 minutes hurling abuse, and then finally a bottle at the boy, before he staggered past him, giving him a hard shove into the pantry door. And then he left. Woody wanted to run upstairs to check on his mother, but being only 7 years old at the time, he was fearful of the state he knew he would find her in. So he ran around to his aunt's house instead, 3 doors down. At first he thought he had fallen down because of the cut on his forehead caused by the glass projectile launched by his brute of a father. She could soon tell by the look on his face and the tears which were struggling to remain unseen that something far worse was all wrong. "What is it, boy? Whatever is the matter?" The child pointed to his left and upstairs as though his mother lay in the bedroom above. Only one word could manage to make its way past his quivering mouth before a cascade of tears flooded his face. "Ma," he sobbed. "Ma." As they were taking Woody's mother to the ambulance, she pulled her sister towards her, and somewhere between fear and twisted loyalty, she began to plead for mercy for the beast. She begged her sister not to tell the police who was responsible for her injuries. "It's my fault. I wind him up something dreadful, and he's so frustrated he can't seem to hold the job down. Poor man, and he blames himself for Valerie Ann." She passed out from the pain medication and her injuries. Thankfully, once an ambulance has been called to an incident, they have to notify the police. The cowardly oppressor did not turn up for court and never put in another grovelling appearance back at home. Evan brought his awareness back to the moment and then continued with the mental sparring sessions with his young self. "I'm related to you, though. We do share the same blood." "Well, I know you're not my dad, and you say you're not my uncle, and I know I haven't got a brother, so go on then, let's hear it. Who are you?" The boy's fears had left the field, and confidence had sat down next to him, letting him know that the stranger was painting himself into a corner. "You're right, I'm none of those. I'm closer to you than any one of those could ever be." Everyone was still wondering what it would sound like to a boy of 11 if he told him who he really was. He had to be careful not to reveal his identity too soon, for fear of losing his own credibility and being ridiculed by his young self. He now appreciated Fate's early reluctance to reveal his own identity. Evan's knees were beginning to hurt from kneeling down, so to give them a rest he sat upon a large rock that Scoob and his brother Jimmy had once dragged to the base of the tree in an attempt to try and help them climb it. He was struggling to find the right words to say to Woody in order to let him know who he was. "Here we go then," he told himself as he steadied his nerve in anticipation. I am so closely related to you that I could even be you. Evan's words came fumbling out and then continued. Well, I mean to say who you will become when you are older, later in your life, of course. Straight away he realised what a pathetic attempt he had just made at trying to explain something that he did not really understand himself. He waited for a reaction, which hurried to the boy's assistance. Woody smiled, indifferently at first, but the smile soon became a smirk, which wanted to turn into laughter. Me. You could be me. And then he just had to laugh. Oh dear. Now, what am I supposed to do or say? Evan asked of himself. He then thought back to his recent visit to the dentist, where he had seen a poster on the wall of the waiting room, which suggested to anyone who read it that they should keep calm and carry on. So, undeterred, Evan continued with his unrehearsed plan of persuasion. You have to admit that we do look alike. Why? Because we've got the same colour eyes and we both have that spot thing. He pointed above Evan's left eyebrow. Woody immediately realised that two things had just occurred. First, they did both share the exact same location of the mall, and secondly, he himself had used the words we and our whilst talking about the mall. Woody was unintentionally helping to turn the man's preposterous claim into something reasonable. So, we have a similar spot on our forehead and the same colour eyes and hair. So what? That proves nothing. Woody felt pleased that his grasp on common sense and reasoning had returned. Evan had no intention of being outsmarted by an 11-year-old younger version of himself, which would mean that he had learnt nothing over the last 14 years. So he asked him the following question. Where are you going this afternoon? Knowing that the youngster would respond with a lie, Evan felt a bit mean for setting a trap for him, but he felt that it was for their own good. Fishing, the boy fibbed, and then, in an attempt to discredit the man's claim, he added, which you would have known if you were really me. He smirked. So, you're not going to Johnson's old mill then, to break in with Scooby and his dumb brother? That question caught Woody off guard and left him fumbling for a decent return. He had no idea how to salvage the wreck of integrity which his half-truth was responsible for. He knew that he had been outmanoeuvred, and he could see no way back into the game of mental sparring, which was a refreshing conversational challenge compared to the immature chit-chat which he was usually involved with. Think, he told himself, there must be some sort of an explanation for him knowing all the things about me that he knows. He can't be me. That's just ridiculous. The boy had to admit that he had, on occasions, believed some outrageous claims, especially those made by his friends. Scooby and his brother Jimmy had once told him that there was a magic rock in Mrs. Taylor's garden, which granted wishes. All he had to do was stand on it and say the two magic words, and then make a wish. Woody was expecting the words to be, hey presto, but the brothers had told him two curse words instead, one beginning with F and the other one being bastardio. Now, being only 6 at the time, Woody had believed in the power of the words, even though he did not understand their meaning. He further believed that those words, pronounced on the correct rock, would bring forth magic, and maybe even a genie who would grant him 3 wishes. With the brothers hiding behind next door's edge, ready to offer encouragement and advice, Woody began his chanting. Nothing's happening. he complained to the brothers. Try another rock, he was advised. After another 3 rocks and 6 more magic words, he complained again about the lack of sorcery. You need to say the words louder, Scooby obligingly advised him, while struggling to stifle his laughter. Again the youngster took on board the advice of his elders and began shouting the 2 offending words, much to the astonishment of Mrs. Taylor. Having admonished the 2 brothers for misleading their young friend, Mrs. Taylor took Woody on one side to explain that there were no wishing rocks and that the magic words were in actual fact swear words. On first hearing the cursing coming from her garden, Mrs. Taylor was of the mind to let her dog loose, a large boundy beast that seemed to own too many teeth for one animal to possess. But then, on seeing the innocent boy, she directed her protector into the kitchen, and she sent Woody on his way with 2 toffees and the suggestion that he should choose some different, better behaved friends to hang around with in the future. That was a learning day for young Woody. It had taught him not to take things on face value. Consequently, he was not about to swallow this man's claims of outrageousness. Maybe this was another setup from the brothers, and yet he felt certain that they did not know his middle name. Otherwise, he would never have heard the last of it. The prospect of coming face to face with an older version of himself was not something which the youngster's mind was willing to accept. He sat and thought for a moment longer, until he came up with the only rational explanation that his mind would allow. For all I know, you may know Scooby and his brother, or you may have heard them bragging. They're like that. They like to talk big, and they probably told you about the mill. And just to think, I was almost beginning to believe you. Or should I say, beginning to believe me.